what I got for you. You want a bacon strip? Put it on the bed with you? Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes, you're a good boy. You need help? Do you need help? 1, 2, 3. There you go. Sorry. Part of why I know somebody needs to go on a wee diet is because he has a hard time getting up on the bed. What did he do with that pack? Well, this intro is going to be kind of weird. 1 second. Mystery solved. I put it back in the drawer. So, while I have the chance to do this properly, good morning, Magic players and pocket lovers of all kinds. Welcome back to our channel. Happy New Year to you all. I hope you guys liked the video I put out last night. I know it was kind of quiet, volume muted. I apologize for that. He was asleep, but he wasn't like super well asleep, and I was worried he wasn't going to stay asleep, so I figured it was just best to try and keep my voice down. But we hit some pretty cool pulls last night. In particular, that one avatar card I'm pretty stoked about. I'm just going to show it off for a sec here. If I can find it super easily, which I think I should be able to. I organized these all this morning, so bear with. It should be towards the back of the sorcery section. There she be. We pulled a very cool Day of Black Sun last night. So spoilers if you missed last night's video. We pulled some really cool other stuff too. We pulled some really cool other stuff too, but this was definitely one of my favorite cards from last night. You having a good time, Kaiba? You eating yeah? Yeah? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Such a good puppy. Yes, you are. You're a very good puppy. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're here today to help me with this video? Or are you going to run off as soon as you get a chance to? Up to you. You don't have to participate. Daddy never make you participate if you don't want to. You're a good boy. Yes. Good boy. Today we're here to do the Commander Call Creator Challenge. We're here to do the deck reveal episode. I checked last night before I went to bed. I did not check this morning, so if anybody posted one overnight, I apologize, because you're not going to get included in this video today, unfortunately, but we are here to do the Miriam deck from this month, which is our December month, and it was supposed to be like a holiday-themed deck. I'm just going to see if I can tilt this down and make it more visible. Is that better or worse? Okay, that's better. Let's go with that. Just can't get too close to it. I would open the curtain. I think that would help, but unfortunately, he is outside shoveling right now, and I'm hoping that he's going to go for his walk afterwards, but I might be putting a break in this video randomly if he decided to just go out and shovel and not come back in. If that's the case, then we're going to be going mobile with this, and I'll be doing the rest of the video in the car. Bloody hell, why is it so hard to get the lighting? Okay, I have no choice. See if that helps. Okay, that helps a lot. Alright, so we're going to go through Snoop's deck super quick, and then I'm going to get this blind closed before he comes in. Otherwise, yeah, there's going to be a weird pause in this video. So our commander of the month was Miriam. She's pretty cute. The reason she ended up being a holiday theme, we thought, or at least I'd made the case that she was holiday theme, is Santa has his reindeer, and Miriam likes to work with mounts. So I thought that seemed kind of holiday-ish. plus green-white. Snoop has built us a beautiful, is it bracket 3? No info on the bracket. He does have one game changer with a Seedborn Muse in there, so I assume they're going to bump it to bracket 3 automatically, but I mean, I can see this being a bracket 2 potentially. Anyways, let's see what we got here. Abzan Falconeer, Outlast. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. Damn, that's a good card. I should get one of those. I used Abounding Felidar as well. I do not have a Bridled Bighorn in my collection, so I couldn't use that one. I did use the Glider. Bristly Bill. That's an interesting choice. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Yeah, that's insane. I do not have an Ox. What does the Ox do? Whenever this thing attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Sacrifice this creature. Creatures control counters on them gain hexproof. And indestructible until end of turn. Damn, that's a good card. Canyon Volter. Whenever this thing saddles a mount or crews a vehicle during your main phase, that thing gets flying until end of turn. Nice. Yes, I know. You're a very cool puppy. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can. I know. We got to get the curtain closed. Kindor enters, you may search your library for a mount or a vehicle card, reveal it, put into your hand, then shuffle. That's solid. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters to be put on a creature or a vehicle you control, add an extra counter on top of those. Nice. Snoop has a whole bunch of good stuff in this deck for sure. Definitely tougher than my deck. Oop, internet is being a little bit fuzzy. There we go. Okay, we got this loading again. Oh, maybe not. It doesn't want to show you the Griff or the mascot. Okay, well, the Griff has flying, lifelink, and whenever it attacks while saddled, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of mounts you control. I'm pretty sure I had one of those in my deck. Next one, District Mascot. Enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Pay 1 and a green, remove 2 +1/+1 counters from it to destroy an artifact. Whenever it attacks while saddled, you get another +1/+1 counter on it. So if you're careful not to remove too many counters, you can destroy artifacts and keep this thing still in play. That's pretty good. I have a Drover Grizzly in mine. When this thing attacks while saddled, all your creatures get trampled until end of turn. Yeah, I understand that you're having issues connecting to the internet. I just don't know why you're having issues connecting to the internet. Silly deck. Or silly laptop. So that's those three. And then we have Amara, Soul of Accord. Whenever this thing becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. That's pretty good. No, I don't want to update my VCL media player right now. Go away. Also go away. Kind of busy right now. This deck has a ton of creatures in it. Holy moly. I do not have a Fortune Loyalty Steed. When this thing enters, scry 2. Whenever this thing attacks while saddled, at the end of combat, exile it. And up to one creature that saddled it, then return those cards to the battlefield under the owner's control. Damn, that's pretty cool. Flickers whatever you're playing. I need to get one of those to throw in with my my Momo cards that I've been pulling lately. Why are you being so difficult, internet? Glory Heath links. Lifelink. Whenever this thing attacks while saddled, search your library for basic planes. Reveal, put it into your hand, the shuffle. Nice. That's not bad. Guardian Sunmare. Ward 2. Whenever this thing attacks while saddled, search your library for non-land permanent mana value 3 or less. Put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. Shit. We're just going to stick with this and just keep going through. You're not going to be able to see all the images, unfortunately, of these cards because my internet is being very wonky right now for some reason. Don't know why. This guy I have a copy of, not in my deck, but in other decks. I like him. Cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on him. Whenever you cast a creature spell, all of them are reduced by +1/+1 counters as well, so pretty solid. I did have one of these in my deck. He's solid for sure to do all your crewing. Trepid Stablemaster. Taps to add green, has reach, tap to add 2 mana of any one color, but you can only use it to cast a mount or a vehicle. Neat. I do not have that guy, I don't think. Definitely not in this deck. I don't think I have a copy of it at all, though. Kodama of the West Tree. Solid card there. Oh, the internet kicked back in. Thank you. Your creatures have trample if they're modified, and whenever a modified creature deals combat damage to a player, you can search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. That's pretty insane. Kona is in this deck. At the beginning of your second main phase, if it's tapped, you can put a permanent from your hand on the battlefield. That's nuts, because Kona's just going to crew all your vehicles and your mounts, and then you're going to get to do that for free without attacking. Kutzil to make sure that you can't be targeted during your combat. Or during your turn, sorry, because your opponents can't cast spells. And then whenever one of your creatures with power greater than space power deals combat damage, you get to draw a card, which is also going to go off a lot with this deck. I do have a copy of this in my deck. And it's a pretty solid one too. Gives +1/+1 counters on each of up to 2 target mounts or vehicles. I do not have her. Tapped creatures you control can block as though they were untapped. What the fudge is that? What the fudge is that? That is an older card too, clearly, because it has flash, but it's describing flash. I do have a copy of this guy in my deck. I did not have nearly as many mounts as Snoop does. Snoop, granted, has access to all the mounts through the internet and has built this deck online, clearly, but I just did not have this kind of amount of mounts available to me. I think I had like 7 or 8. So I have a lot more vehicles in mine. But my deck also has kind of a funny theme to it, which I'm going to try and keep doing when I build decks, because I think that makes it more amusing for me. Whereas Snoop's deck is clearly built just to destroy. Again, Snoop, you've definitely built a really solid deck that's just going to function well and do what it's supposed to do. Second main phase, if this guy's tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or +1/+1 counter on it. I think I have a copy of that one, but I didn't put it in my deck. Second main phase, if Rip is tapped, reveal X cards on the top of your library where X is its power. Put any number of creature and or vehicle cards with different powers from among them into your hand. Whoa, that's insane. That's a good card. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you gain 1 life and scry 1. Yep, that's going to mount a bunch of stuff for sure. Seraph the Viper's Fang. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Huh. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. But this in combination with that other card that you control that lets you block with tapped creatures will let all your creatures now have Death Touch. That's a pretty good combination. I like that combo, Snoop. I see what you're cooking there. And Seaboard Muse just untaps everything. Ooh, you've also got a Seraphic Steed. First strike lifelink. Whenever this creature attacks with saddle, it creates a 3/3 white angel. Ooh, I want to get a copy of this thing. I need to get a copy of that. That's a cool card. Now we're getting into the sorceries. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. You're doing some board wiping nonsense too, eh? Search your library for basic lands, reveal. Yep, I have a copy of that in some deck, but I can't remember which deck it is, and I'm not going to take it out of it. I definitely did not do a whole bunch of landfall stuff, which clearly Snoop is trying to ramp the crap out of, and then overwhelming Stampede to finish the game off. Definitely a good deck. Ooh, Chroma's Will. If you control your commander, you can do both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike. Creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from each color. Yeah, that's a finished game winning card too. Dawn's Truce. Permanents you control gain hexproof. If a gift was promised, they also gain indestructible. Final Showdown. All creatures lose all abilities. Choose a creature you control gains indestructible. All creatures get destroyed. If you control a commander, you can cast this without pay. Creatures control gain indestructible. Okay, so definitely the goal of your deck clearly seems to be to board wipe and then protect your board so everybody else's stuff goes. And I actually have a bunch of similar stuff going on in mine. I do have rat control in my deck, I think. If I remember correctly, I think I threw that in there. Smuggler Surprise, I only had one copy of that and it's in a deck already. It's a good card though. Swords of Plowshares, you have Path to Exile, all that good stuff. Arcane Signet. Eska's Chariot. Enters, create 2/2 green creature token, cat creature tokens. So those are going to do a bunch of saddling. Whenever this thing attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. Nice. I have a Lifecraft engine in my deck. This is a good one. Enters, choose a creature type. Vehicle creatures you control are the chosen creature type. Each creature you control is the chosen creature type other than this vehicle gets +1/+1. Equals the number of lands you control. Ooh, that thing's going to be powerful as fudge in this deck that you've built. Enters or attacks, you can search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tab, then shuffle. Nice. Did I have this one? No, I have something similar to this, but not as powerful as that one. Yours is Flying First Strike Vigilance 5/5, and it gives you angels. Mine gives me soldiers. I think mine is from, what's that set called? Fallout. It's from the game Fallout and that set. So I'm not sure what set this one's from of yours, but it looks pretty cool. War of the Spark, apparently. Okay. I don't think I've ever ripped a lot of War of the Spark on this channel, if any. Reaver Titan. Protection from mana value 3 or less. Whenever this vehicle attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. Ooh, shit. That is nasty. 10/10, it has crew 4. Costs 7 to put into play, but still, damn. And I assume that's protection from mana value 3 or less applies to like instants and sorcerers too, so that thing is sick. No wonder it's a $27 card, 34 if it's hollow. Recon Craft Theta, flying. Whenever this thing enters, create a 0/0 blue alien creature token, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever this thing attacks, proliferate. Nice. That's a good one for this deck. Selesnya, Soul Ring. Trample each other vehicle you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on its mana value is 4 or less. Otherwise, enters with 3 additional. Ooh, shit. I don't have that one either, I don't think. Need to get a copy of that, though, too. When this enchantment enters, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 2 target creatures. Then, if you are the monarch, double the number of +1 counters. That is disgusting, Snoop. That is absolutely disgusting. I definitely need to get one of those too. Dazzling Theater Prop Room. Creature spells you cast have Convoke. Untap each creature you control during each other player's untaps. Felidar Retreat to give you a whole bunch of cats to crew your vehicles, +1/+1 counters as well. Ghostly Prison, as if this deck actually needs that. Hardened Scales, this deck is sick, Snoop. You've built a sick freaking deck again. +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1. If you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or a player, put that twice that many. Shit. I don't have an Innkeeper's Talent. I never pulled one of those yet. From Bloomborough, I didn't get lucky enough. Sphere Grid. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put +1/+1 counter on it. Unlock ability. Creatures control with +1/+1 counters have reach and trample. How do you unlock the ability? Interesting, though, but I don't know how you unlock that. Unless it's just by putting a +1/+1 counter on it, then it automatically gets that, I guess. At the beginning of your end step, either put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control or create a green raccoon. Holy shit. Ooh, you actually put in an avatar card, too. Creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes tapped for the first time during each of your turns, put... I haven't pulled one of those yet, but that's a sick one. Abandoned Air Temple. This land enters tapped unless you control a basic land. Tap for white. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This land enters tapped, add white. Station, once you get the +12 counters on it, +3 and 1 white tap, creature token. As a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except. Ooh, shit. Start your engines at 1, increase, add colorless, max speed, target creature gains haste until end of turn. 2 or more opponents, comes in untapped. Green. That's going to be green and white. Pathway land. We pulled one of those recently. Very cool. Canopy Vista, Command Tower, whole bunch of forests, Fortify Village. Huh, did not know that that was an existing card. Just tapped when this thing into Surveil one, nice. Hideaway 4 on the Mosswort Bridge, good card. Core Haven is a legendary land. Taps for colorless, pay 1 and a white, prevent all combat damage. Ew, that's disgusting. Overgrown farmland, plains, Sunpetal Grove. Crazy good deck, Snoop. As per usual. Every land is a forest, of course. My hat's off to Snoop. Snoop has built yet another amazing challenge deck for us to share. I cannot deny that Snoop's deck is definitely way better than my deck is going to be in terms of like function. And that's mainly just because, again, I went less on function this time and I went more on theme. So since I wanted to do a Christmas themed deck, my first thought was, how would I get this to feel more Christmassy? And I mean, I have no red, so I can't get, like, if there was a Santa Claus card in Magic, I can't get it into my deck. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to try and finish. Sorry. I think I cut that off partway through what I was saying. I was just trying to finish closing the curtain without disturbing Kaiba too much. So I wanted to make sure I paused the video in case I lost you guys. Alright. We have looked at Snoop's deck. Snoop's deck is amazing, as expected. And again, much better than this is going to be for me. But I wanted to do something on theme. And so, what I thought of, and I hope nobody will take offense to this because I wasn't trying to be in any way offensive, but I thought afterwards maybe somebody might. I thought, what else can I come up with from Santa's workshop that I could include into this deck that would be interesting? And so then my first thought was, how about we make a deck about mounts and vehicles and elves? And I thought that would be really cool. But all the elf cards in Magic are like these tall-ass, hot-looking creatures, like from Lord of the Rings elves kind of thing. Like, you don't really have, like, the short little, like, workshop elves. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll use dwarves. But then I thought, that might actually come across offensively. So I definitely didn't want to do that. But I still wanted to do something where it was kind of on, like, that sort of idea. And so ultimately what I decided to do, and what the theme of this deck is, and the name of this deck, actually. Oh, I really don't like the lighting in here without the... Alright, we're going to risk it. The theme of my deck is the Hobbits Ride to Moria. So, my goal of my deck is to actually... I do have a few cards that are not Hobbits, and we're going to go through those ones first. But basically, I have every green and white Hobbit that I currently own in this deck. And I just want to use my Hobbits, get them big and beefy, and put them into vehicles and swing at people. I thought that seemed like a really funny idea. And Hobbits are, you know, kind of like Santa's elves in the fact that they all live together in a community. They're somewhat industrious, but they're also very laid-back creatures. Gandalf is kind of like Santa Claus. It's the closest I could come up with. Anyways, let's go through this real quick. Aeronaut Admiral, flying, and all my vehicles will have flying, as long as this guy is on the board. So that is how I'm getting around the flying thing that Snoop had with the +1/+1 counter thing. I put Brie Innkeeper in here because since most of the Hobbit cards have something to do with a food token, I figured I might as well include this guy. And then I can keep making foods regularly to sack for life and such. I'm going to leave Miriam up here because she's the head of the deck, of course. I included a Loran, Disciple of History. Whenever this or another legendary creature enters the battlefield, a lot of the hobbits are legendaries. If that is the case, then I get to return an artifact from my graveyard to my hand, so that's a great way to, first grade of the day. Fantastic way to get back vehicles from my graveyard and recycle them. As I said, I have a hotshot mechanic, just like Snoop did. I also have a Kitsune Ace, though. Whenever a vehicle you control attacks, I get to either give it first strike, or I get to untap this guy. Probably going to be giving it first strike. And so that combined with the Aeronaut Admiral means my vehicles will all have first strike and flying, which is pretty kick-ass if I can get both those guys on the field at the same time. I threw a Foundry Inspector in here because, like I say, I have a lot more vehicles than I do mounts, unfortunately, so this will reduce the cost of all those vehicles. I threw a Guidelight Synergist in here because, again, since I have so many more artifacts than I will creatures, I figured this guy's going to get really beefy, and then I can swing over people with ease, hopefully, with the flying, and he has a decent butt, too. And the last of the non-Hobbit creatures, I believe, for now, let me double check, yes, is this beautiful Golden Hind. I just wanted to have an extra mana dork in here. I do have like 1 or 2 vehicles that actually let me produce mana, but I figured, you know what, throw an extra mana dork in here. It only has 33 lands, and I know that that's going to be a problem with some people, so mana production isn't a bad idea. First of our hobbits is Meriadoc Brandybuck. Whenever 1 or more halflings you control attack a player, you get to make a food token. So if I make my hobbit super beefy and I decide to swing with just the hobbits, I get to make foods. And he pairs really well with Peregrine Took. Whenever 1 or more tokens would be made, you get to make an additional food. And then you can sacrifice 3 foods to draw a card. I'm not going to do the second half of that, probably, but if I can get 1 food with Meriadoc, I get a second food with Peregrine. And there's a few other types of tokens that this deck makes as well, so insanely good value with that guy on the field. Next up we have Frodo Baggins. Whenever he or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under my control, the ring tempts me. And if he's the ring bearer, he must be blocked. And then, of course, we have Samwise the Stout-Hearted. When he enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target permanent in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn and return it to your hand. The ring tempts you. I'm going to probably be getting back vehicles, mounts, etc. after combat. Eleanor Gardner. I did not break down my other Hobbit deck for the record to build this one. I was not going to do that. I like my pre-con Hobbit deck the way it is. But I have been talking about wanting to build a Hobbit deck, so this was actually kind of like 2 birds with 1 stone for me. When this thing enters the battlefield, you get a food. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacrificed a food, you can search your library for a land. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, so this is kind of like my ramp guy. We got Rosie Codna South Lane. When she enters the battlefield, create a food. Whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. So you're noticing, as I say, a lot of these hobbits are legendary, which is awesome. We're getting into some of the non-legendary ones now, but I mean, still, pretty decent amount of legendary creatures in here. Plus, some of the mounts are legendary too, and some of the vehicles even. Although they don't count as creatures. 2/2, Vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a token. If you do, exile a creature an opponent controls until this guy leaves the battlefield. So that's not a bad one too. Next up, we have East Farthing Farmer. When he enters the battlefield, you make a food. When you do, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each food you control. So that's going to be pretty insane if I have a decent number of food on the battlefield at the time. But even not, it will still boost something a little bit. Choke Reaper mainly is just in here because I was running out of hobbits and I needed something to throw in. So when it dies, the ring tempts me, but mainly it's just going to be crewing some vehicles probably. Brandywine Farmer. When this thing enters or leaves the battlefield, you get to make a food. It's a little expensive, but it's worth the food. And finally, Nimble Hobbit. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice a food or pay 2 and a white. If you do, tap target creature and opponent controls. Probably not going to trigger that ability. Again, mostly some of these hobbits are in here just because they're going to crew the vehicles and the mounts. Now we're getting into the mounts. That one already gives the +1/+1 counters. We saw that in Snoop's deck. This one was in Snoop's deck too. Pretty much all my mounts are in Snoop's deck, I think. I don't know if there's any ones that I put in that he didn't put in. You think I should close the curtain? Okay. You're okay, you're okay. Oh no, I knocked over the deck. Oh no! The deck fell over! It's okay. We can salvage this. You guys are like, what's going on? All we see is a black screen. Blank screen. It's okay, Kaiba. We're good. Don't worry. I finish this video, and then we'll go out and play some more in the snow. How's that sound? Okay? Yeah? Okay. Oh, you're a good boy. I know. You're very confused because I have the day off, and you're like, why is Daddy here? Why didn't Daddy go to work? You're going to be even more confused tomorrow when I have to go back to work. You're a good boy. I'm going to finish the video, and then I promise I'll take you out to play in the snow. I am not sure if he had a trained Aronix or not in his deck. When this thing attacks while saddled, it gains first strike until end of turn. You get to scry one. It's pretty straightforward. Dies really easily, unfortunately. The downside about saddling is you don't get to add, like, power and toughness. I would have loved that, but I think that would have broke the mechanic probably for sure. I know he had one of these in there. When this thing attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. You gain 1 life for each of those creatures. It is insanely good value, though, so... I don't think Snoop had this one in there. Brightfield Mustang. Whenever this creature attacks while saddled, untap it and put a +1/+1 counter on it. I like that one. He did have the glider, which is a good one for sure. And I'm fairly certain he had the rambling possum too. Which is nice because I get some ETB triggers off of that again if I want to. And now we're going to get into the stack of vehicles. And this is a big stack, so settle in, folks. We're starting off with Thundersteel Colossus. 7/7 crew 7/7 for 7, crew 2, trample haste. I figured a hobbit in this would be pretty kick-ass. I have a Voltheart bike. When this thing enters, you gain 2 life. It taps for 1 mana of any color, so you don't have to actually crew it if you don't want to. But if you decide to, it's crew 2. Tangle Tumbler. Again, probably not going to crew this, but if I do, I can crew it with 2 food, which is insane. Has Vigilance, it's a 6/6 for 3, and pay 3 to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Consulate Dreadnought, 1 to put it into play, 6 to crew it, and it's a 7/11 with no other abilities. But, again, if I have my 2 pilots out there, it gets first strike and flying, so that's pretty insane. High-Speed Hoverbike, 2 for flash flying. When enters the battlefield, tap under up to 1 target creature. 2/2 with crew 1, pretty simple one. So the hobbits can crew that one pretty easily. 4 for 5/5 with menace. When this thing enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. I figure this is a great way to get rid of a planeswalker that's on the field that's annoying me. But it also just has the 5/5 and menace, which is insanely good swinging ability. This one is going to annoy players that I face. Ribskiff. 4/4 for 4. Toxic 2. When this thing enters the battlefield, I get to draw a card. Crew 3. I tried to pick vehicles that I thought hobbits would actually, like, somewhat decently go into, so I didn't go too crazy with like spacecraft and stuff, but at the same time I wanted to build like, I figured like if you had like the fox pilots and the few other creatures that I had that were not hobbits at the beginning, let's say they showed up in the Shire and they taught the hobbits how to build all kinds of really cool war machines. I think these are the kinds of war machines they would have been able to build with the stuff they had laying around. Whereas opposed to like some of the stuff, like there are a couple vehicles in here that are a little bit too far-fetched, but for the most part, they're all pretty on point. I especially like this one. Cultivator's Caravan, 3, 4, 5, 5, crew 3, but again, another mana value. So that is 3 mana dorks that are in this deck now. So, just so we're clear, I have mana value in this deck. Don't get worried. I can pull it off. Funeral Longboat, 2, 4, 3, 3 of Vigilance, crew 1. Pretty simple. That one almost feels like it's right out of Lord of the Rings because, Boromir gets sent down the river in a boat like that. There is the Lifecrafter engine that I mentioned that Snoop and I both had in our decks. I think my dad's coming back now, so I might have to be a little bit quieter. Thundering Chariot, 4, 4, 3, 3 with First Strike, Trample, and Haste, crew 1. Mobile Homestead, 2, 4, 3, 3. Has haste if you have a mount, so pretty good chance that I can pull that off. Whenever this thing attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it onto the battlefield tapped. That's insanely good value. Colossal Plow will also let me help look for some good stuff here. Or no, it doesn't let me look for anything. What it does is it gives me 3 white mana. I forgot about that. 2 for a 6/3. Crew 6 is the downside of this one, but when it attacks, you get to add 3 white mana and gain 3 life. And you don't lose that mana until the end of the turn, so that's pretty solid. This is admittedly the one that I think is probably a little far-fetched for the hobbits, but the Pridewind Steel Flagship. 4 and 2 white for a 6/6 fly. Whenever a non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white knight human creature token with this thing gets +2/+2 as long as an artifact enters the battlefield under your control this turn. Basically, those knights are going to be my crewers a lot of the time, too. If I don't have hobbits, then I have knights. Air Response Unit, Flying Vigilance, crew 1, 3/3. And remember, like, all these vehicles that I'm showing you will have flying or first strike potentially if I can get those 2 creatures on the field, so that's really solid combo potential for this deck. 3/4 for 2 and a white. When this thing attacks, turn target creature or vehicle with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Mainly, that one is for fetching back a lot of the lower, like, the pilot cards. I think some of the hobbits actually come in at the lower end, too. Marian Brook does, Frodo does, Samwise does. So there's a lot of like hobbits that I can get back with that card, which is really good value for this deck. Then I tossed in, at the last minute, a Dormant Grove, because I wanted to make sure I had a few extra an extra card in here that did some +1/+1 counters things. Basically, I have like 3 or 4 enchantments that all toss +1/+1 counters on my hobbits for various reasons, so they can get beefy enough that they can actually use their machines. The goal, of course, is to not make the hobbits so tough that they actually flip this card, but if they do end up flipping this card, then all my creatures have vigilance, which isn't terrible. It's just... And it does give me a 3/6 for crewing, which isn't bad either. Next up on the docket, Case of the Trampled Garden. Another one for giving +1/+1 counters. It shouldn't be too difficult to solve this, assuming... If I remember correctly in how this works, I think once you crew a vehicle, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, which means that a lot of my vehicles in here will probably proc this really easily, and thus I'll have +1/+1 counters at the when I attack. So that's not bad at all. Oop. Double card pull by accident. Next up, since I'm working with hobbits, I had to throw in a shortcut to mushrooms. Enters the battlefield, the ring tempts me, sure. That's not a big deal. Whenever a permanent I control leaves the battlefield each turn, though, my turn, I get to put +1/+1 counter on target creature. So with all the food that I'm planning to eat, I'm just going to be making +1/+1 counters, which is nice. It'll especially go well with the innkeeper. The innkeeper makes me a food every turn, and then I can sacrifice that food during my turn, and then shortcut of mushrooms will trigger, and it'll just be like a nice little loop that I can keep going. This one gives me a +1/+1 counter on a creature or vehicle I control, and it gets vigilance until end of turn, which is nice for both my mounts and my vehicles. And then I can exile this and bring it back as a Vigilant Haste 5/5, which again is just phenomenal for crewing vehicles, if need be. I tossed in a Wild Growth for a little bit of extra ramp going on. Most people, I assume, will not probably target my Wild Growth, and will just let me get the extra forest. Try and toss that onto a plains so I get a forest and a plains whenever I tap the land. Dredger's Insight is pretty solid. Whenever one or more artifact and or creature cards leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. Whenever this thing enters, you mill 4 cards and can put an artifact, creature, or land from among the milled cards into your hand. What this thing does really well is it's going to let me, with the card that lets me bring back some of my vehicles and my creatures, it's just going to let me keep gaining a little bit of life here or there, which is not bad. There's a few other cards that are really going to let me return stuff too. But, yeah. Trail of Crumbs. Whenever this thing enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice food, you can pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library, reveal a permanent, put it into your hand. The other one goes to the bottom of your library. Pretty decent card. Repair and Recharge. As I say, getting some stuff back from the graveyard. Gets me an artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker. I have no planeswalkers in this deck, so it's just for the artifacts or the enchantments. And I get a Power Stone out of it, which is pretty nice. I did mention that I was doing some board wiping stuff, and here comes the nonsense. White Sun's Twilight is the first one. I gain X life. I create X my tokens. If X is 5 or more, I destroy all other creatures. What I love about this is this, and there's 1 or 2 other board wipes that I have in here. They target all my creatures, but they don't target my vehicles. And since they give me a whole bunch of tokens, I can still crew my vehicles on the turn that I play these, and swing at people to do massive damage once their boards are clear. So I don't have as many protect my creatures from being destroyed spells as Snoop does, but I do have the ability to crew my vehicles afterwards regardless. The next one up, same idea, Martial Coup. I think he had one of these in his deck. Create soldiers, destroy, if X is 5 or more, destroy all the creatures. Basically, again, I'm going to board wipe everything and leave my vehicles intact, and then crew my vehicles with these soldiers. Refurbish gives me back an artifact from my graveyard to the battlefield. Again, I get a life out of that 1 enchantment, but also it's just a fantastic way to get me back my vehicles as they get destroyed. Many Partings to get me a basic land, put it into my hand, and make a food. Revive the Shire, return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand, make a food. Again, if it's an artifact or a creature, I get a life as well. Sunset Revelry, 1 and a white. If an opponent has more life, I get 4 life. If an opponent has more creatures, I get 2 humans. If an opponent has more cards, I get to draw a card. Insanely good value for 1 and a white, so I figured why not toss it in, plus it's a Lord of the Rings card. Next up, Appeal and Authority. Appeal lets me give a target creature trample and +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures I control. So once I crew a vehicle and I'm going to swing with it, I can, or once I crew the vehicle, before I go to swing with it, I can pump it up massively. And then Authority, tap up to 2 target creatures an opponent controls, and all my creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Very nice, very nice. This is one of the few cards I did throw in to make sure my creatures don't get destroyed. They get +1/+0 and indestructible. Creatures I control get +2/+0. If it's not my turn, they get to untap. So if I've crewed a whole bunch of vehicles and I've left myself vulnerable, I can use this card to then untap all my stuff. And it won't untap my vehicles necessarily, but it will untap the people that can crew my vehicles. And if I have other vehicles that I didn't crew last time, I can crew them again, or I can just use my Hobbits as blockers if need be, since they'll also be pretty tough with the extra +2/+0 buff. I did say I had a riot control in here. Next up, Trash the Town. Some +1/+1 counteraction, gives some trample, and when it deals combat damage, I get to draw 2 cards. I can apply all these effects to one creature, or I can apply them to 3 different ones, which is what I really like about that card. Loran's Escape. Target artifact or creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Scry 1. Goes really well with the Loran creature earlier, so I just felt that was on flavor. And finally, Aim High. Untap target creature, gets +2/+2, and reach until end of turn. Another way to just kind of crew something if I need to, or I can block with it. And now we're just going to get into the lands. The lands are pretty straightforward. Temple of Plenty for the scrying. Blossoming Sands for the life gain. That one gives me 2 mana for 1. Enters tapped because I just ran out of other lands to put in here. This one I like, actually. I can make Sapperlings with this one, which then I can use to crew my vehicles if need be. Or I can use that one to tap for the one that taps for green and white if need be as well. So, not bad. I do have one that is searchable, but it just comes into play tapped, so it's not as good as all the lands that Snoop has, of course. I like this one too, because this one lets me search for a couple lands if I want to, or I can just keep using it for colorless. So it's solid for fixing my deck if I get mana screwed. Same with these. I used to really hate these kinds of cards, but I'm now fond of them for 2 mana decks only, though. What I don't like about them is trying to keep track of, like, if you're playing a 5-color deck, this one is going to be green and white. The next one's going to be blue and blue and black. The next one's going to be red and white. And then you have to try and remember what all of them are. It's just too much. But in a two-color deck, these are awesome. So I've got the Thriving Grove and the Thriving Heath, so I will get either or, of course. And then just the regular lands. Lord of the Rings land. I do have another Lord of the Rings plains in here somewhere. And I have a couple of nice forests, so I just figured we'll look at the art. Appreciate the art. There's a beautiful plains. Another forest. There's the Shire. Another artwork from the Lord of the Rings. And that's my deck. So, like I say, my deck's a little more simple than Snoop's. It's not as efficient as Snoop's by any means. But my deck is, I think, a little more fun and flavorful, in my opinion. I think that Snoop definitely built the best mount deck out there for sure. I just really like the idea of the Hobbits riding to Moria. I think that's really... It's going to make this deck a fun deck for me to want to play. And yeah, this is actually one of the first Commander Core Creator Challenge decks that I've built that I'm actually probably going to keep. The Landfall deck from like 3 or 4 months ago, I have to upgrade still. And I'm thinking about making it a blue, green, and black deck, actually. And then the mono black deck that we built last month or the month before, the Gix deck, I'm planning to actually use the core of that one in the blue, black, white draw deck that I want to build. But anyways, I have one pack of Avatar that I want to rip with you guys and get you out of here, because I just want to rip a new pack for the new year. I am destroying the artwork on this cardboard, and I do not care because it's one-handed. And it's too hard to do it one-handed. So sorry. Kevin, hold my phone. Hold the phone. Good boy. The thing I don't like about the packs from Walmart is because you don't have to do the pack trick, you get to have the first card revealed right away as soon as you open it, which kind of sucks. I like having the token there to block it, so you don't know what you're getting until the end. Tokens on the backside. We got a cool monk token, and then something else. Geyser Leaper is an okay card. It's not my favorite. The stats are decent enough. It's just the water bending is a little expensive for drawing a card and then having to discard as well. If you only drew off of that, I might actually be okay with it. Got another Rabberoo. That's pretty solid for a landfall deck. Unfortunately, the landfall deck I want to build, like I say, is not involving white, but I do have a bunny deck that I'm going to be building in the near future, so at least one of these is going in that, and then there's a few other decks that this will probably fit into really well. Ostrich Horse, we've pulled that like 4 times, and it's not one of my favorites either. Mill 3 cards. If a land gets milled, you get to put +1/+1 counter on the. You get to put it in your hand. Otherwise, you put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. Yeah, not my favorite. Rough Rhino Cavalry. We're hitting all the ones we pulled before now. Firebend 2 is decent on a 5/5. The exhaust is a little expensive, but it does give your creature trample until end of turn 2, so that's not too bad. I would have preferred a trample counter, though, for an expensive 8. Ooh, that's the second time we pulled this one. When this creature enters, target opponent discards a card. It's nice to have an extra copy of him. Dad is home. First time flyer. He's okay. Only in a lesson deck, though. That's not a bad one. That one's only good if you're playing a lot of islands. Otherwise, that one's going to get expensive. Ooh, nice. It's only the second time I pulled a copy of that one. It is an insanely good lesson for one. We got a new Boomy. Nice. When he enters, choose up to X, where X is number of lessons in the graveyard. Oh. Well, we definitely need to put him to a deck with lessons, apparently. Still an insanely good card, though. And we got another low one, Lee. Nice. Nice. Second time we pulled one of those, and it's not a bad land by any means. Do not need more copies of that one, though. And the other side. Ooh, nice. Beautiful swamp at night. And a food along with our monk. Cool. Alright. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Commander Core Creator Challenge. And I am going to do the choices video in the near future. I haven't decided exactly when, but we'll figure that out. In the meantime, in between time, Happy New Year. Much love to you all from Kyla and I to you. Take care. And thanks for watching.